Today, I'm really excited to talk to Lara Kassir about the role of hypnotherapy in sleep disorders. Lara, can you tell us a bit about what you do and your background and how you use hypnotherapy in your work?
Thank you for having me, Nishi. I'm a certified clinical hypnotherapist and Brainspotting practitioner, and I'm trained in sleep disorders, among other specialties. And I was born and raised in Paris. I studied psychology, and then I felt like I wanted to go deeper. That psychology basically surface. It's only targeting the conscious mind, so limited. And I tried myself hypnotherapy. I tried coaching, hypnotherapy, and it was very helpful. After only one session, I had a lot of trapped emotions coming up. I thought, this is what I want to do. I want to help people and go deeper and learn that modality, that amazing modality. After my studies in therapy, I went to coaching. I did coaching in London. And after coaching, I went to California to study hypnotherapy. And it's the best institute in the world because we're mixing theory and practice at the same time. So that was amazing. We went straight into the heart of the modality. And after that, I decided to do Brainspotting, which is going even deeper. That's more trauma related.
We were just chatting before we started about Brainspotting and hypnotherapy. We'll get into Brainspotting in a few minutes. If you're listening and you're not familiar with that or you're not sure what that is, we're going to get into that and talk about what the role is. But maybe let's start with some of the basics, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about hypnotherapy out there. A lot of people might think about it in terms of, stage hypnosis and making you cluck like a chicken and that kind of stuff. So first of all, what is hypnotherapy and how is it different than that image we might have of Las Vegas hypnotist?
Okay, so it's very different. So basically, hypnotherapy is a natural state. We're in and out of hypnosis every day. When we first wake up in the morning, before we go to bed, when we're in a deep state of meditation. So let's say you're driving and you're missing an exit or you're daydreaming, that's a state of hypnosis. So it's, in terms of brain waves, it's basically switching from beta brain waves to theta brain waves. And theta brain waves is one of the stages of sleep. So this is when we're starting to get into sleep. And basically, our mind is more suggestible. We're more relaxed to receive the suggestions. So it's very different to stage hypnosis, because the misconception about stage hypnosis is basically that you can be controlled without your consent. So that's very scary. And it's actually the opposite. It's about regaining control over your subconscious. But you have the power over your subconscious. We are living unconscious. We are driven by our subconscious. So if we don't get in there and download whatever we want to serve our goals, most likely our goals are not going to be served.
Yeah, and I think that's really helpful to make that distinction between it's not about mind control. So a hypnotherapist is not trying to control what somebody's doing or what they're thinking. It's really allowing them to open up space to overcome some of the challenges that might be preventing them from sleeping well, or that might be contributing to anxiety. So when it comes to sleep issues like insomnia or racing thoughts or having a lot of anxiety, what is hypnotherapy actually doing for that person? In other words, how is it affecting their mind and body if you're working on those issues?
Okay, so first of all, it calms the nervous system. Therapy, but specifically somatic therapies and hypnotherapy, is basically switching from dysregulation to regulation. When you have an overactive mind, when you are stuck into the same repetitive thoughts, feelings of stress and anxiety, those symptoms signal that you have a dysregulated nervous system. So it's about basically rebalancing. And hypnosis does that. It calms the nervous system. It allows you to connect with your inner power, your inner calm. There's a lot of guided imagery, and it's about embodying that state you want to be in.
It's so interesting too, because a lot of the work that we do with patients around sleep is starting with mindset, like helping them believe that they can overcome some of those issues and helping them, like you said, embody what it might feel like to feel more regulated or to work through some of that anxiety. So this is a tool to help them get there.
Yes, and we also work on the associations, because when somebody consistently has issues sleeping, there is that anxiety only to the idea of sleeping. So hypnosis is also about changing those associations. and allowing them to have a positive association with sleep instead of anxiety and fear.
That's so helpful because there is this Pavlovian response that happens to people when they've been struggling with chronic insomnia. Now they do have an association of nighttime being a scary and unsafe time, or being associated with wakefulness, and then the bed also being associated with frustration and anxiety. So when you're working with someone on sleep issues and you're using hypnotherapy, what does that look like? What can a person expect from that first session? And I know a lot of people might not understand, it might be scary for them to actually go see someone who does hypnotherapy. What can they expect and what usually happens in the first session?
Okay, so the first session is the longest. It's 90 minutes because it's about opening up. So I need to understand and explore, when did those sleep disorders start? Are they related to any traumas, any bad experience, any specific period of their lives? It's basically investigation, exploration. That's basically the first 30 minutes of the session. And then I start explaining visuals, how the subconscious works with the conscious mind. So what I refer to known associations, the primitive mind, fight, flight, or freeze. So the iceberg is explained, and also the map of consciousness, which is a very interesting map because it basically brings us to what are our dominant emotions. And those who suffer from insomnia, for example, are very much into the survival ones: fear, anxiety. It's very important that they have a look at that because together we can identify where they're at and where they want to shift. Because remember, behind any presenting issue, most of the time in my career, I discovered that they had other issues underlying, right? So that's also something that we might address along the way. This is why the first session is a little longer, because we need to explore and they might be aware of what's going on in their subconscious. After that, we switch into progressive relaxation. So induction, progressive relaxation, this is when they start. So also it's very important to note that this can be done via Zoom, online. It's as effective online as in person because they just have to close their eyes, put some background music, and listen to my voice, basically. So there's the induction, progressive relaxation. Then the heart of the session is the hypnosis. It's recorded because the subconscious works through repetition. So they will have to repeat that over and over again before bedtime or when they first wake up in the morning.
And it's a really powerful approach to peel back the layers to see what's going on. Because as you mentioned, if someone's struggling with chronic insomnia or sleep issues, there's often something else that might be at play underneath. And sometimes that's trauma. Sometimes, there's a lot of stress or anxiety that's happening in their life that's showing up in this way. And so it's important to understand what else might be at play for that person.
Yeah, and sometimes it's both. And sometimes one impacts the other. Remember what we just talked about, anxiety about sleeping, anticipatory anxiety. So people who have trauma might develop insomnia or other sleep disorders, and then they also develop negative association with sleeping because that happens as well. So it could be both.
Absolutely, yes. And so who's a good candidate for hypnotherapy? And then on the flip side, who's not a good fit for this type of approach?
Okay, so as I said, hypnotherapy is a natural state. Some people might be more receptive than others because of trust issues, and some people are more suggestible. In case there is trauma involved, it's not enough. They would need to add another modality and maybe your help, for example. So it really depends on the severity. It's working on positive associations, on building a sense of safety within your body, within your subconscious mind. So it's really empowering your subconscious. That's what it is. Some people are a little bit less receptive because they have trust issues, but the more they repeat it, then it starts being more, their subconscious starts opening up to it. But typically, it's also about how consistent you are with the MP3 recordings and all of that.
How many sessions do you usually see improvements within? Can people expect improvements within one session, or what's a typical timeline, especially for someone with insomnia? As you can see, there's a lot to learn when it comes to clinical sleep medicine, and we're just scratching the surface in today's interview. If you are a physician or a health practitioner who wants to learn more about clinical sleep medicine in a practical way that you can use in your everyday clinical work, then get my free sleep mini course. I'll put the link to that in the video description below. You can also get it at intrabalance.com/doctors.
A typical timeline would be 4 sessions. So they have 4 different recordings, but starting 2, they start seeing significant results in case they're consistent. It's very important to be consistent with the recordings and the sleep routine. Listening to the recording before bedtime is a big step. Or if they wake up in the middle of the night as well, that helps them falling back asleep.
And 4 sessions is not a lot, actually.
It's not a lot. And as I said, it depends. If they have traumas, then we add the other modality, and that could be done within the same session, and that it could go even quicker than that. So it really depends on the commitment. But 4 sessions is not a lot, but it's the minimum required, I would say, for somebody who's been suffering for insomnia for a long period of time. Some people want to take more and they want to maintain, but already with 4 sessions, it's very good already. You could see significant results.
You mentioned the other modality, which is brain spotting, and that can be helpful for trauma. For the listener, especially if you're a physician, you might be thinking, well, is there any evidence for what they're talking about right now? We know that CBTI, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, is the gold standard treatment for chronic insomnia, but there is evidence that hypnotherapy is effective as an adjunctive treatment to CBTI. And then you've mentioned brain spotting too, and how you might integrate that into this sort of approach. So can you tell us, what is brain spotting? How does it work? And then how does that fit into hypnotherapy?
Brain spotting is a brain and body modality. So basically, it takes into consideration the body, because the body is storing traumas. A very famous book is called The Body Keeps the Score, and it very well describes how we keep our traumas in our body as well. It's not only in the mind. That modality allows us to connect the trauma in the body and also open the file in the subcortex, because when our brain is overwhelmed with a trauma, it's unable to process it all, and whatever's left unprocessed stays in the subcortex. So through the eye movement, we are able to go back, reopen those files, and process, letting go of the emotional and physical traumatic memory. So if I can give you an example, let's say for insomnia, sleep disorders, the feeling might be anxiety or fear. So they would choose that feeling, and I would ask them, where do you feel it in your body? How activated do you feel? Sometimes it's in the heart, sometimes it's in the neck, wherever they feel it. Then they open their eyes, and then I will move the pointer and I will read where they are more activated. They will tell me too. It's a very interactive modality between patient and clinician or doctor. And basically from there, they will start processing, reopening those files, and emotions will start to be released. And that will help to make them feel safer, because when you feel unsafe, this is also one of the reasons that you can't fall asleep, because you don't feel safe, hypervigilance. So this is why I know it also helps for hypnotherapy, because once I identify where the energy and the fear is blocked in the body, I can introduce it in the hypnosis for customized, tailored hypnosis. So this is why it's very effective to combine both. It is more intense than hypnotherapy because it goes back to traumas, but that's the goal.
Some of our listeners might have heard of EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Brain spotting is kind of related to that. How are the two different, brain spotting and EMDR?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's very similar, but brain spotting is more specific. So EMDR, it keeps on moving, and it's actually EMDR is more for a specific event, while brain spotting is about a feeling. Like you don't really know why you're feeling anxious or you're scared or you feel trapped, but you have that feeling. So we need to explore and reopen that file. And sometimes it takes us back to memories like when we're children or adolescents. So it's very interesting how effective it is. I trained with the founder, David Grant, and he was basically working on people that had severe PTSD from war. So it is designed specifically for PTSD, big T's or small T's. So sometimes we have small T's and we're not even aware of it. So small T's could be how somebody made you feel consistently when you were a child, or it doesn't have to be a big tsunami, but this is why brain spotting is very effective, because actually it allows you to go deep and to be aware of things that you would normally not be aware of, but it's creating blockages and discomfort in your life.
That's such a great explanation. I've not heard it explained that way before, that brain spotting is more focused on how you feel, not about the traumatic memories itself. I think that's a really useful way to think about it.
Yeah, it's not a specific event.
Back to hypnotherapy, we were talking about the fact that there is some evidence for its use in conjunction with CBTI or cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. And I know there's definitely some healthy skepticism around hypnotherapy, especially in the clinical world. So what does the the research say about hypnotherapy for sleep, and where do we still need more research?
There's a Swiss study that found that because of the brain waves, it allows people to get into restful sleep, so to fall asleep easily and to remain asleep. So apparently it's improved by 80%. So those are the brain waves I was referring to. It's very important that we access this very deep state of relaxation, which is theta brain waves. And then after theta, there's delta. That's when we go really deep. And yeah, so it helps with that. But there's more studies, but they're not specifically on sleep. Other studies about hypnosis are about other issues, but there's a lot of evidence. Basically, the body and the mind is connected. So we can't really treat something without addressing the body. It's the somatic intelligence.
There's a lot of really exciting research coming out on hypnotherapy for a variety of conditions beyond sleep, as you were just saying. And I'll link to some of the videos we have about hypnotherapy for GI issues. And then we've got another video on hypnotherapy for sleep if people want to take a deeper dive. And I'll put some of the references in the video description below if you want to look at the research. Lara, I'm wondering, when you're working with clients, you've been speaking about the fact that there's not just sleep issues at play. Usually there's other things going on. When you're working with someone, what types of improvements do you see? Maybe that might be surprising or interesting, or that aren't specifically related to sleep. Like, are you seeing them experience improvements in other areas of their life?
Absolutely. If they're committed and they follow through the sessions, we definitely find that, first of all, they have much more awareness. They start becoming much more aware of what's going on. But when we go deeper with the hypnosis and the brain spotting, they realize that it might stem from a trauma from childhood, or it might stem from a time in their life where they really felt unsafe and they didn't know how to deal with things. And they're in fight, flight, or freeze. They're in survival mode. So once they're aware of that, techniques really helps. Rituals, techniques, grounding therapy, spending time in nature, journaling, basically processing all of our emotions, because emotions are basically energy in motion. So when we repress, what happens is that it's not going to go away. When we repress those feelings, they come back in uglier ways. So this is one also of the key components, is that they learn new tools to deal with everyday life stress and anxiety and challenges, instead of repressing everything and then not being able to deal with it. It really depends from one person to another. But yes, they start realizing a lot of things. It's a journey. You know how we say healing is a journey. So it's not linear either. You got to be committed and patient, but it's definitely worth it, because the level of inner peace that you gain and self-awareness, and you just know yourself better, you just become more powerful. That's what it is. Instead of being controlled by your subconscious, you are the captain of your life and you are controlling. You are the one, your goals are being served.
I love that description, that you're the captain of your life, like when you can learn these coping skills and use these tools effectively. Because yeah, so many people, when they're struggling with anxiety, when they're struggling with sleep issues, they feel like they're not driving the ship, right? The ship is driving them. So this is a way to give people agency. So for the doctor, the therapist who's watching this, and they're wondering, okay, yeah, maybe I'll refer my client or patient to hypnotherapy. How can they find someone who is reputable? Are there certain certifications or licenses that we should be looking for?
I would recommend clinicians to look for AHA certified, basically hypnotherapists that are within that association. And also the hypnotherapy school I went to, the institute, HMI, Hypnotherapy Motivational Institute in California, is one of the best in the world, because it's basically a mix of theory and there's a clinic. It's practice as well. So we were practicing, and it's the longest. That's why I decided to move there from Paris and to do that training. It's because it's really an amazing training. So probably also a hypnotherapist that has done that training, and somebody, I think it's always better to have somebody who has a background in psychology, because those issues are definitely, they go beyond hypnotherapy. It definitely, like I said, behind hypnosis, sometimes you find more severe issues that you need to address. So somebody with a background in psychology is also great, and also specialized in whatever they're looking for, if it's insomnia or if it's eating disorders or addiction. So somebody who's specialized, because we do have trainings. I'm specialized in sleeping disorders, for example. example, because I took that training. Within the train, there's a regular training, but there are also specialties that you can take. So that's helpful as well.
Great. That's very helpful to know. What is one myth that you'd like to bust about hypnotherapy? And what's one thing that you wish more healthcare practitioners understood about it?
Okay, so the main myth about hypnotherapy that needs to be completely erased is that it's mind control, because it's completely the opposite. First of all, I cannot introduce any suggestion that the client is not willing to put in his subconscious. And this is why there is a 30 to 40 minutes opening up exploration at the beginning of the session. It's because we are together talking about how would they want to replace those negative patterns or associations with positive ones. So they are in full control of their mind. I cannot hypnotize somebody without their consent. And it's all about them regaining control over their subconscious. Because if they're doing that, it's because there is obviously some things that they're not okay with and it's bothering them in their life. They are basically controlled by their subconscious mind. What hypnotherapy does is helping them to regain control and empower themselves and be the captain of their lives. I wanted to add that unfortunately, most clinicians are only taking into consideration the mind or specific organs without taking into consideration the holistic approach, which is that our emotions, the psychosomatic illnesses, for example, that our emotions can negatively impact our bodies. And we go back to Ayurveda and Chinese medicine that is much more connected to the body and mind connection. This is why somatic therapy is so effective compared to talk therapy, because it actually takes into consideration our bodies, the state we want to be in, releasing those trapped emotions. I know you are different because you're very interested into holistic medicine. It's all connected. So there's no such thing of the body without the mind and the mind without the body. Well, obviously that whatever we addressed at the beginning is that therapeutic hypnosis is not stage hypnosis. It's very different. So what I'm doing is basically helping people to dissolve stress, anxiety, whatever issues they have. And stage hypnosis is just for the show. So it's completely different. So that's one of the main, and also that we are not controlling your mind. We cannot hypnotize you without your consent. It's only going to help you to empower your mind. So the suggestion that I'm going to put in their mind in the recording is something that we discuss together at the beginning of the session. So there's nothing to be afraid of. It's the opposite. We are helping you to empower your mind and to become the best version of yourself.
Wonderful. So if people want to work with you or refer clients to you, what is the process to do so? Where can they find you?
You can find me on my website. So it's larakassir.com, and Instagram, LaraKA1, and my YouTube channel, Lara Kassir.
I'll put all of those links in the video description below so people can go and click on those and check them out. And definitely go and follow Lara on Instagram. And are you able to see clients in any location?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. As I said, I work remotely and I'm also bi-coastal. So I'm between Miami and LA. So I do spend some time in LA. But as I said, most of my clients are online. It's as effective and you're still going to have the recording and everything can be done. So I could see clients all over.
I highly recommend it. So I did a session with Lara and it was excellent and super valuable for you as a clinician. If you're watching and you're seeing clients who are struggling with anxiety, with sleep issues, who are open to exploring something a little bit different, then hypnotherapy might be a really useful adjunct to your treatment plan. Thank you so much, Lara, for sharing your expertise and spending your time with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. See you soon. Bye.